Working with reactive dogs is where new dog trainers either grow really fast or completely fall apart. And when it comes to reactivity with dogs, these are the three biggest mistakes that I see trainers make all of the time. And if you're starting to work with reactive dogs or want to work with reactive dogs in the future, then avoiding the mistakes I'm going to talk about in this video will set you up for huge amounts of success. The first mistake is that so many trainers focus on the outburst rather than the build-up. When you see reactivity in its full form, dog going wild towards usually another dog or whatever it is that they're reacting to, the reality is that they will have been signs, they will have been signals building up to that point. Signs and signals that will have reflected the dog's emotional state, their arousal levels, their motivational drives and purpose before the explosion happens. And if you're always waiting for the explosion to happen, you're going to be having to be reactive all of the time. And when working with canine behavior, you want to always avoid how much you have to be reactive. Now, don't get me wrong, there are going to be times and moments where that is going to be not just required, but relevant and the right course of action. But it's incredibly important if you want to have high amounts of success, if you want to achieve higher levels in the canine industry, is that you become a proactive practitioner, that you're looking for those signs, you're diagnosing and assessing the build, why these behaviors are happening, where these behaviors are stemming from, and making sure that your training plan and modification programs are helping the dog at those points. Because if we fix those issues, the big outburst never occurs anyway. Rather than waiting for the big outburst and then having to try and be constantly patching things up, but leaving the dog in that emotional state, in that motivational state, which can then, if left unaddressed, might have solved the reactivity here, but could create huge and different problems over here. And the reality is that if you're always waiting for the outburst, you're almost certainly going to be correcting way too much. And again, correcting, challenging, interrupting behaviors is something that is going to be a necessary part of your training system if you want to achieve success. But again, you want to limit how much you're correcting to only the required times using the level of pressure that is just enough to achieve the desired outcome. That allows you to remain within welfare and ethical standards, be able to hold yourself to that high level of standard whilst being able to still achieve success and be able to achieve success that most other trainers aren't able to because they're focusing on being reactive, whereas you're going deeper in behavior, deeper in training to be able to be proactive, fix things at the source and set dogs up for real levels of success. The second mistake that I see people making is trying to fit everything into one session. Now, this has been something that I've been very guilty of before in my career, and it's something that unfortunately I have to do fairly often still to this day. And that's because a lot of my work with dogs in my behavior clinic is with dogs that are at risk of immediate euthanasia, where the risk assessment is so high that if we don't fix the problem quickly and oftentimes in the space of one session, or at least show huge amounts of progress to give the clients some level of hope to allow us the time to be able to make longer term success, then that dog is at immediate risk of being surrendered to a shelter or worse, being put down. And I've worked with many cases where it's if we can't work on it today, they're going to the vet later this afternoon. And in those situations, the pressure of having to achieve results and success is astronomically high and something that I try to avoid wherever possible. But when you work with clients that are willing to put the work in, are willing to invest in a longer term behavior modification strategy, then you don't have to rush. Make sure you're doing your risk assessments well. Make sure that you are putting safety processes in place, management strategies in place to facilitate the time that you need safely. And then when you've done that, that allows you to create a plan that is proactive, that is working on those emotional and motivational levels that are sitting underneath the behavior, rather than just focusing on the tip of the iceberg that's poking outside of the water of the reactivity in and of itself. So don't feel the pressure to have to smash everything out the park in one 60-minute session. When it comes to reactivity, in a dream world, I like a 3 90-minute session program. The first program is going to be doing all of the assessment and diagnostics, seeing the behavior, really starting to understand exactly what is happening and giving myself the time to do a thorough diagnosis, to learn more about the clients and the owners and learn more about what's going to be a realistic expectation for them to be able to facilitate the training program that we're going to need. Then in the second session, we're going to be working on a lot of the obedience and the relationship stuff, making sure that we've got our desirable behavior dialed in that we want the dog to be displaying instead. And then towards the end of the second session and going into the third session, we'll start introducing reactivity, where we can interrupt and address and follow my behavior highway protocol of closing the negative behavior highway and opening up the desirable behavior highway and helping the dog understand which path they need to take at what point and depending on what trigger or environmental stimuli is going on. Patience is key, and it will set you up for longer term success if you do so. Now, if some of those ideas seemed a bit overwhelming, or you don't understand what I mean by emotional states or motivational states or assessment, diagnostics, risk assessment, management strategies, if all of those things seem a little bit over your head at this point, that's not a problem whatsoever. And I created my advanced diploma in Canine Behaviour Training to teach you all of those skills in the most comprehensive, thorough way with practical examples and demonstrations and everything that you need to be able to facilitate working with reactive dogs to the highest of standards. If you're interested in learning more about that advanced diploma, there'll be a link in the description box below alongside a special discount for my YouTube viewers. But let's get to the next mistake that I see people make with reactive dogs all the time. And this mistake is going to be one that might need to challenge your pride, challenge your ego a little bit. And the people that are able to do that and do that comfortably, again, are the people that I see have the longest term, most sustainable success. And the mistake is people taking on cases that frankly they're not ready for. Now, if you're new to working with dogs and you've done little bits of obedience and maybe you've worked on some very basic behavior modification stuff, maybe you've had a really nice Labrador that pulls on the lead a little bit and you've worked through some really nice basics and you've had success with that case, but the Labrador was lovely with a great temperament, great genetics, and just had never really been taught what is appropriate and what isn't. But that's a very, very different situation from a poorly bred, neurotic, intact male XL bully or German Shepherd or Rottweiler that's genuinely trying to kill every other dog that it sees, is incredibly strong and powerful and is more than willing to redirect onto a handler. They're very different cases and require very different levels of skill, experience and confidence as the professional. And if you go into those cases unprepared, it will be evident to the clients that you're working with, which isn't good from a business perspective. You won't be able to have the success. Your imposter syndrome will go through the roof and you will set yourself back months, if not years, from having those bad experiences early on, with the extreme of some people leaving the industry altogether. Now, I know some amazing dog trainers that never take those kinds of cases on. It's not what they want to do. They don't enjoy it. They understand that it's not their cup of tea. It's not their skill set. It's not the kind of stuff that they want to be spending their day on. So they might say, that's not a case that I think that I'm a good fit for you, but maybe you can go and work with Will Atherton at his canine centre because they're the kind of behaviours that he specialises in. Now, that was more back in the day, and now I focus the vast majority of my time on working with the rescue dogs in my sanctuary. But there are many other great trainers that you could refer on to that are willing and capable and experienced and skilled enough to handle those cases. And what you might find, and one of the best ways, is that if you do want to work on those cases longer term, is go with the client to the session with the other practitioner. Go with the lens of not that you're there to learn or that you're there to watch, but that you're there to facilitate between the client that you already have experience and relationships with with the new trainer that they have not yet met. And you're going to go and facilitate that and pass over any knowledge or information that you've gained to that case at that point. And then you can be there to watch how that trainer works. The trainer should be more than happy to allow you to do that, especially because you brought a client to them and a paying client, and it's a nice exchange of value. So again, if that's something that you want to do long term, that's a really nice way that you can go about getting the experience, watching how those things unfold and how the skilled trainers handle those situations without you having to take huge risks, huge gambles, and getting things wrong early in your career, which can have pretty significant negative impacts on both your business and on your emotional state and confidence as a canine practitioner. So again, if you want to learn more about all of these topics in much more detail, check out the advanced diploma in the description box below. But if not, I can't wait to see you on the next video, and we'll be here to help you continue on your journey to become a high-level canine professional.